Netflix, no phones, no books. For most of history, just you, your thoughts, and about 70 years of raw, uninterrupted human existence to fill. Think about that for a second. No scrolling, no background noise, no fifth rewatch of a show you've already memorized. Just time. Endless, empty time. So what did people actually do when they were bored out of their skulls? You'd think the answer is nothing, they just suffered. But no. Turns out, a lot of what ancient humans came up with to kill boredom was either genius, disturbingly violent, or completely unhinged, sometimes all three at once. Let's get into it. Let's start with something that sounds harmless. Board games. Except board games are older than writing itself, older than money, older than most religions you've heard of. The royal game of is nearly 4,500 years old. It was found buried in royal tombs in Mesopotamia because, apparently, ancient royalty figured they'd need something to do in the afterlife too. Imagine being so bored, even in death, that you needed a board game packed next to your body. Then there's Senet, the Egyptian version, which was so wildly popular that pharaohs were buried with full sets carved from ivory and ebony. This wasn't some kid's pastime you played once and forgot. Adults gambled real money on these games. They argued over the rules. Historians believe some games got so heated that people were probably rage-quitting in hieroglyphics, essentially the Bronze Age version of throwing a controller across the room. And it wasn't just Egypt and Mesopotamia. Nearly every ancient civilization independently invented some version of a board game because it turns out humans have always needed a way to compete, gamble, and pass brutally long evenings without dying of boredom. Here's the part nobody tells you in history class. Ancient people were just as petty, messy, and chronically online as we are today. Except online was a stone wall in Pompeii. Archaeologists have uncovered Roman graffiti roasting specific people by name, bragging about romantic conquests, complaining about bad food at a specific tavern, reviewing gladiators like they're leaving a one-star Yelp review after a bad fight. One wall literally preserves someone's complaint about a guy's massive ego written almost 2,000 years ago, and it reads exactly like something you'd see today. People carved insults into walls. They carved declarations of love. They carved crude jokes that historians still argue about how to translate politely. Some graffiti even shows early attempts at what we'd basically call comment section arguments. One person writing something, another scratching a reply right underneath it. Humans have not changed even slightly in 2,000 years. We just swapped stone walls for phone screens. Now here's where boredom stops being funny and starts being genuinely terrifying, because some people get bored and take up knitting. Ancient people got bored and invented extreme sports with an actual mortality rate. Take Roman chariot racing. Nobles would bet entire fortunes on races that regularly ended in fatal multi-chariot pileups. We're talking horses tangled together, wheels shattering mid-race, drivers thrown and trampled in front of tens of thousands of screaming spectators. And people didn't just watch this occasionally. Chariot racing was one of the most popular forms of entertainment in the entire Roman world. Stadiums held over 100,000 people at a time, all there to watch a sport where death was considered part of the show. Then, over in Mesoamerica, there was a ball game called Olamalitzli. Part sport, part deeply serious religious ritual. Players used their hips to keep a solid rubber ball in play inside massive stone courts that still exist today. And in some versions of this game, according to historical and archaeological evidence, losing wasn't just embarrassing. Losing teams were sometimes sacrificed. Boredom, it turns out, escalates disturbingly fast when there's no Wi-Fi around to distract you from your absolute worst ideas. Not everything ancient people did to kill time was violent, though. Before television, there was the fireside epic. Picture this. No lights, no screens, just a fire crackling in the dark, and one person standing up to tell a story that could last for hours, sometimes multiple nights in a row. Epic poems like the Iliad were memorized in full and performed live, entertainer after entertainer passing the story down, generation after generation purely through memory and performance. Traveling performers, jesters, and bards were essentially the streaming service of the ancient world. Except you had to physically show up to watch. And if the performer forgot a line halfway through, that was your buffering screen. No pausing, no rewinding, just an awkward silence around the fire while everyone waited. These performances weren't just entertainment either. They were how entire cultures preserved their history, their myths, their identity, one bored evening at a time. And then there's the stuff that makes you go, wait, really? Ancient Romans had dice games so addictive, they were technically illegal outside of specific festival seasons. People still played them anyway, tucked away in back rooms, because apparently gambling bans have never actually stopped anyone in the history of humanity. Meanwhile, in medieval Europe, entire villages held cheese rolling contests where people would chase a massive wheel of cheese down an actual steep hill, on purpose, for fun. Broken bones were common. Some competitions still happen today, and yes, people still get hurt. And over in ancient China, cricket fighting became such a serious pastime that emperors personally bred and kept champion crickets, treating them like prized athletes. Entire courts would gather to watch two tiny insects fight in a small dish, with nobles placing serious bets on the outcome. Boredom didn't just get killed throughout history, it got weaponized into full-blown, sometimes bone-breaking obsession. So next time you're bored, scrolling through your phone for the 5th hour straight, just remember this. Somewhere 4,000 years ago, someone was betting their entire house on a chariot race. Someone else was gambling with carved sheep bones in a back room. And somewhere else, someone got into a genuinely violent argument over a board game. We didn't invent boredom. Humans have been fighting it since the very beginning of civilization. We just made it a whole lot safer.